Welcome to People Love Process. In this movie, we'll demonstrate several methods for texturizing typography to give it a more unique and authentic distressed look and feel. We're also going to use typography as a mask to compose designs as well. Now, we're not going to image trace anything. This is all going to be done on live typography fonts, and it will give you non-destructible ways that you can explore, and it's really cool. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start with this type you can see here, and our background's white. So the first thing I'm going to do is a little unintuitive because we're not going to be able to see it. I'm going to select it. Right now it's black. I'm going to fill it with nothing, empty. Then I'm going to go to the appearance panel, and we're going to use the appearance panel much like we use layers. Think of the appearance panel as layers with magical abilities. So we're going to select the type layer here, and I'm going to go down to the fill color, click it. It'll default to black, and I'm going to make this white. And you're going, well, you can't see it on the background. That's okay. We're going to keep this fill color selected, and we're going to be applying effects to this live typography. And effects, think of a font. You know, there's debate I've seen on Instagram lately where people are going, you don't call it typeface, you call it a font. I disagree with that. Typefaces have been around way before fonts ever were, and you called something a typeface. Oh, that typeface is this, and you give the name for the typeface. The fact it has a family of different styles within that typeface, that's fine. That's what font is, just a technology. So I think that's a stupid argument. I call them typefaces. Font means it's software. And that those typefaces and all the families included in a certain typeface under whatever name they've given the typeface, those are all just vector-based glyphs within that software. And that's what we're applying effects to. So if you ever wondered how it does it, a font is basically vector art under the hood of the software, which drives the font. So we're going to fill this or select the fill layer, go to effects. And the first one we want to do is under stylized. We want to do an inner glow here. And I'm going to open that. It might default to normal. That's fine. If it defaults to anything else, just set it to normal. We do want to be able to see the effects, even though we can't see the background or that is the fill color of the font. We'll click this. We'll go to color swatches, select black, click OK. And you can see it's already kind of giving us the inner glow. Now, there's also center. We have edge selected. If you did center, you get something like this, which looks kind of cool. If we bump this up, let's do 15 like that, you can see you can get a really kind of almost a sci-fi kind of effect. It's almost that Stranger Things kind of titling where it looks like things are fading out into the background. It's a little ghosty. That's kind of a cool effect, but we don't want that. We want it to be based off of the edge. So I'll select this, and this is too much. We don't want it to color the inside too much. So we're going to go back to 9. I think that was looking good like that. And we want to keep opacity at 100% because we're going to be doing another effect that will use this effect to base it from. So we want this at 100 so it looks even better. So with everything set like this, we'll click OK. And with the fill layer still selected, you can see our first effect here. We're going to go back to effects, and we're going to go to one down under pixelate, and this is a Photoshop effect available in Adobe Illustrator. It's called Mezzotint, and we'll select that. It'll bring up this window, and under this drop-down window, you can see you have all kinds of things like long lines. You could do something like that if you wanted to, or medium lines, you know. So it has a lot of different things going on. You have strokes like this, so you can get different kinds of I call them weatherization of whatever object you apply this to, whether it's a font or just a regular vector object. It works with either. But I want to go back up here because you could have, yours will probably default to fine dots, which doesn't look bad. I don't like having this so much filled in. And if you go to medium, then it gets a little coarser and it breaks it up in the middle. I like that. If we go to grainy, that looks good too. And the one I want to select, though, is I think I'm going to go with coarse dots. It's a little bolder, and it still leaves artifacting on the inside, which I think looks good. And so we're going to go with that, and we're going to click OK. And if we look back of our appearance panel, you can see how it's added that as well. So the next thing we want to do, and by the way, it's at this stage, you'll want to save this so you can always go back to the editable existing graphic style and tweak it or select one of those other styles and explore that way. So if you're not sure, then save a copy of this layer, or like me, I don't have it in this file, but I have an X layer. I would copy this to the X layer or make a copy of my layer itself. Maybe I'm not sure, so I just go here and I go duplicate type layer and turn this one off, and then I might name this original effects like that. And then if I ever wanted to change it, I could go back to it. Another thing you can do, if you don't want to lose this style, you can just select it, go to the graphic style panel and click plus, and it's going to add those graphic styles as a graphic style selection like this. So that way you could go to any vector object. Let's say you create a square. We'll just color this yellow, no outline, like that. We'll select it, and I can go ahead and just click this graphic style, and it's going to apply that graphic style to that. Now, we're going to lose the fill color of yellow because we applied the style over it. That's okay. You could go to the appearance panel. You could see it's just filled this color with those effects applied to it. You could create another fill color. So different ways you can save it. Just make sure you do it before you do the next step, because once you do it, you kind of commit to the effects that we've applied to this type. But for me, I'm looking at this and I'm going, I don't really like the name. I think that could improve. So I could go in here and just select Victory and type out organic like that. So because it's live typography still, it applies those effects to those vector glyphs within the font. That's cool, but still, I don't think it matches the aesthetic. Right now it's Poppins, that's okay, but it's a little too clean for an organic-based type of look and feel. So I'm going to type in another typeface. I believe this is a Google typeface called Lolita 1. And I think that aligns with the look and feel I'm trying to achieve with this design. So I'm going to select this now. And again, make sure to back it up if you're not sure. I'm going to commit to this one. And so the next thing I want to do is this is just effects applied to vector-based objects within a live type font. So I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to pull down to Rasterize. I'm going to rasterize what you see here. And the settings that I use are grayscale, but under resolution, it'll probably default to 300 based off of what you're doing. You could set it to whatever you want, or you can pick other, which I usually do. And I punched in 450 ppi, so it's a higher resolution image. I have transparency set, and I always select Art Optimized Super Sampling. I find that gives a better result, and I'm going to click OK. All that does is creates a raster image. If I go to the links panel, you can see it's added this texture type down here. So it's created a raster image. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, the next thing we want to do is use image trace to image trace this to turn it into vector artwork. So I'm going to open this up, and it might stay gray until you reselect it. I don't know why it does that. It's just a little annoyance that happens. Make sure you click on Advanced, because you want to go down here where it says Ignore Color. We don't want it to image trace the white areas. just the black pixels. So we're going to click ignore color, basically ignore white. That's what it used to be called. But now if you're using a colorized image, you can use the eyedropper to select whatever color you want it to ignore. And as long as this is checked, it'll ignore that when it image traced it. So they improved some of those processes within image trace. The next thing I want to do is, and by the way, this is like a cooking show where at a certain point, the chef will look at the camera and go, season as you prefer, meaning at this point, you might want to use salt and pepper, your favorite rub, whatever it is. I'm kind of saying the same thing. You can image trace this to get whatever result you want. You can do this really tight, so we can go like that, put it high, and then we might go with noise, we'll go all the way down. Now, this is going to be probably a lot more memory intensive, but that's okay. I think it'll give us a pretty good result. Once you have whatever settings you want this to be, we can go ahead and image trace it. So I'm going to click on Trace. And then once it's traced, you have to expand it. And I do that by having my control panel always on. And if you go into Window, make sure you have your control panel on. Now, the newest feature, contextual taskbar, I don't like that, so I never have that on. But I always have control panel on. That way, after I image trace, I can just click expand. It gives me access to the vector-based art. We can close the image trace window. And let's just zoom in a little so you can see. I think that looks really great like that. And it's all vector-based artwork. If we go to keyline view, you can see it's all vector now. So I can select this, and maybe on this one, I would color it a dark green like that. Let's go ahead and go down here and turn on this background color, because I've also filled in the letter forms with a lighter green, and I use the same exact method to add a nice texturing to the brand mark itself like that. So that's a fun way that you can add texturizing to live type and work it out and keep it non-destructive. And then once you know you have what you're trying to achieve, then you can obviously expand it and get to the final art. So what I want to do next is I want to walk you through kind of a fun way to do texturizing on live typography. So let's turn on this design. I'll turn off these layers. What we're going to do here is we're going to first texturize it. Now, I've covered in previous movies how to go about using bitmap TIFFs. I love bitmap TIFFs. Let me turn on this layer. And by the way, sometimes you'll get a placed image like this. You'll get these lines in it. And if that happens, I'll show you how to fix it. It's super easy. It's another thing that never used to be in Illustrator, but somehow became an issue. And I don't know why it's never been fully resolved, but it still pops up. But all a bitmap TIFF is, and I took this photograph of an old concrete wall because I liked all the distressed nature in it, the lighter areas that show through to the background. By the way, a bitmap is just black pixels, white pixels, default to be transparent in Illustrator. That's why it's beautiful to use these in Illustrator. It's an easy way to add texturizing. So right now I could select this, and because I want this to run through my design, I can just colorize it the same color as the background. Now it's going to be going through all the color design. Now I'm going to back out of that because I want to explain something. I have this one, which is the surface texture that I have selected here. But I took this texture and inversed it. And if I turn on this layer like this, you can see it almost fills everything. That's because this layer is the inner invert area of that texture. And we're going to be using both to pull off this look and feel. So I'll go back here, turn on the surface texture. I'm going to select this. I'm going to color it red. And I could just lock this layer. Now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and turn on a mask like this above it, and I could select the texture we just colorized, and I could go ahead and just mask it into that shape like that and lock that layer. It doesn't matter, either or, it's going to be fine. Here's the other texture we have, but we don't want to color this the background color. We want to color this white. Why is that? Well, if I turn this off, if I go ahead and just go ahead and turn this off right now, and I turn on this, this is the typeface we're going to use. Now, once again, a font is just vector art under the hood. So each glyph, whether it's a alpha or a numeric, it's just vector art that's wrapped inside the software that's a font. So we can use this as a mask because it's vector art under the hood. So with the typeface selected, I'll turn on the surface texture. I'll select that, so both are selected. The type on top, because we're going to mask it, so the type needs to be on top. And all I'm going to do is mask it. Now, I have an F key shortcut to mask. I never do it this way, but if you don't have keyboard shortcuts set up, this is a good argument to do it. You would just go to Object, you go down to Clipping Mask, and you go Make. Notice I have F1, so I can mask it with F1 and hit F2 to unmask it or release it, that is. It just makes the process go faster. And if you don't have keyboard shortcuts, then watch my Creating with Keyboard Shortcuts movie on the People Love channel. So let's go ahead and select that. So now it's masked that texture within the vector glyphs of whatever word we have here. And this is cool because now if you want to explore, maybe you're not sure what a name is. Right now it's Skullco. That's not bad, but maybe we go into it. And by the way, the easiest way to select is just select the type tool, click into it, Command A, select it, then you can type out whatever you want. So maybe you want to try a different word. Maybe it's Destructo, kind of goes with the vibe of the artwork. If you're still not sure, then keep exploring. This is the beauty of it. So we can select it again. You know, maybe it's Bonehead. We all have one like that. That's cool. But because we use the exact same texture, one positive, one a negative for the reverse of that texture, it's now allowing that texture to run through our art and run through the typeface that's still live and editable, so we can figure something out before we commit to it, and then we'd expand everything. So I just wanted to show you this. I think the best name for this, let's select it, I think would look best is Warlord, like that. And that's how you can use live type as a mask, in this case, to mask a bitmap. Now, this could mask anything, actually. Maybe you had a design with certain linear lines in it, and it's all vector-based, and that was a rectangular shape. Then you could use a typeface to mask that. Now, of course, if you type out your word longer than what you masked, you're going to break that illusion. So that's the only limit to this methodology. So pretty fun, pretty useful. And let's jump to the next example. So I'm going to turn on this layer, and we're going to turn on this dimensional type. Now, in last week's movie, the one that would be previous to this one, in my People of Archive, I showed you how to take live type and create. Let's go ahead and expand this a little bit. If we expand the fill color on this, you can see we've used offset, we used transform to get this cool looking dimensional aspect to our type. So I want to add some other things to us. You can see we have a white fill here. But I think what I want to do is I want to add a texture to this typography, but not a texture in terms of being organic. A lot of people will kind of, it's kind of semantics where they'll say texture, but it's really a pattern. So some people say, well, I like designing textures, and I go, really, show me, what are you talking about? And I'm thinking texture like degrading or whatever. No, it's a pattern. Oh, a pattern. So whether or not you call it a pattern, that's up to you, but we're going to go here and add another pattern. So I'm going to click and go to add new fill. That's going to duplicate the layer we just had, which is white. Then we're going to go here and I'm going to select this, which is a pattern swatch, like that. And why didn't that work? What happened? I don't know why that didn't. Oh, I know why that didn't work. Because we have to go in here and we have to fill this with the color like that. I forgot to turn on the I kept the base color white. So of course the pattern's not going to show up. So once again, let me turn this off. So this was previously white like this. Just make sure your base color is whatever you want. In this case, a nice teal. And then I can create a new fill color. And on the new fill color, it's a nice kind of pattern that goes with the vibe. I don't think this reads too well because it's hard to read because you need some breathing room. And this is where I would add a stroke in here. Probably not that thick. We could go down on this stroke. I would do something right around that. That way, it kind of breaks that tension of the pattern going next to the dark blue. And I think this looks pretty cool. Now, if you don't want to use Hawaii again, you can just click into it, select it, and you could type in any name you want. But, you know, maybe you like Maui better. That's fine. Maui would be good. You know, but it's live type, so you can make it say whatever you want. Let's go ahead and click again. My favorite, I think, and maybe we use all uppercase letters. We could do Kauai, like that. And I think that looks pretty cool. I kind of like the lowercase letters better, so let's go back to that. I like the dot being in there, like that. So that's how you can add, in this case, another, keeping it all live type and filling it with a cool pattern. Maybe you combined textures into this as well, so it could look a little distressed on a yellow t-shirt. There's just so many things you can do, and this allows you to explore and adapt as you're moving through your creative process. Now, live type masks, like I showed you with the Destructo design, are useful when you're not sure what you want to use word-wise. You can still work out a design and keep the typography non-destructive and continue exploring until you find the exact word and kind of arrangement you want. A good use for this approach, utilizing whether it's utilizing effects or utilizing patterns or masking textures, it's really great for name drop designs where typography is dependent on the location, event, etc. And it needs to be flexible to change and adapt a design to the locality that it's being marketed to. Now, I have a friend who ran a whole business off of name drop designs. And he would come up with a cool design. A lot of the designs were awesome, but then he had the flexibility to sell that to all these different markets because his build file that they'd start with was a template file, and it had this type of approach for the name drop. So there's a lot of things you could do with this kind of approach. So just give it some thought and think how you could use it to create what you need to create. I hope you find my channel content helpful. If you do, give this movie a like. I'd really appreciate it. Comment on my content. I like talking to you guys. You have a lot of good ideas and you ask good questions. So that helps me to figure out what would be some new content. Somebody suggested something last week, and I've been documenting a whole process with a client project, and we're talking from communication to them exceeding scope of work and me having to address that back and forth. I'm going to share the whole thing with you, and it's a real world project. And I think you're going to enjoy that. And all of that came about because somebody asked a question, and it was a really good question. So I appreciate those. All of this helps me grow the channel and create more creative and unique content to help the design community improve and grow. Until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. And once again, as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.